Let's turn our attention to the education sector. Let's review the sector by looking at how it has fared over the years and the promises that are being made by the NPP in the 2020 Manifesto. Joining me for a discussion is the Deputy Education Minister, Dr. Osei Edu-Twum. Also on Zoom is Joseph Homaji. He's the interim chair of the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, GNECC. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Right. Do we have the Deputy Minister, Dr. Osei Edu-Twum? Right. We'll be joined by Dr. Osei Edu-Twum. Right. Oh, there we are. Dr. Edu-Twum, thank you for your time. Now, I'll start with Mr. Homaji. Mr. Homaji, what is your first impression of the manifesto? There's so many things promised, but how do you assess government's performance so far in the past 3.5 years?
For regarding education, is it regarding education?
That's correct, Mr. Homaji.
Good. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity and good evening to your viewers. The educational sector, I would say the government has performed well, even though we don't have a perfect situation, and you can't get a perfect situation anywhere. So we will commend the government for all the measures and the reforms the government has put in place. So as the program goes on, then we come to the details. Then I will make the comment to the details. But for now, we generally will commend the government for all the reforms the government has put in place to ensure quality education for Ghanaian children.
Right. Now, let's look forward. So many new initiatives being promised from the tertiary, sector, seeing the provision of loans without the requirement of guarantors, provided the student has a national identification number from the Ghana card, and also this deferment of repayment of loan after national service, plus an additional 1-year grace period. Let's talk about that first. In terms of its impact, how important is such a provision to students? And what difference, in your assessment, will it make to their performance?
Oh, well, with the guarantee system, sometimes it's a hindrance for the student to access student loan. Sometimes how to get a guarantor to guarantee for you is a problem. So now that it has been removed, it has access to student loan, so that students will be able to acquire the loan and pursue their education. However, the challenge there, where we will call upon the government to look at, is when the students get the loan, because there is no guarantor. When the students get the loan, the repayment will be the issue. So if the government could find another mechanism to ensure that when the students get the loan, they will pay back the loan, so that others will also benefit from the loan, that would be laudable. So as we commend the government for this measure, which will also enhance the access to a loan for students, we are also suggesting to the government, or recommending to the government, that they must also find another mechanism to ensure that the monies are retrieved, so that others can also benefit from this loan.
Right, thank you. Dr. Edu-Twum, once again, I hope you're there. I haven't been able to hear your voice yet. But
I'm here.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks so much for your time with us. Good afternoon. Now, Doc, these past 3.5 years, I suppose the #1 achievement in the education sector would be the free SHS. No doubt it has increased access, and people who would never have been able to go to senior high school are now able to do so thanks to this initiative. We are yet to see how it affects performance in external exams, since those are still ongoing. But have we been able to improve the quality of education in the 3.5 years? And how are we measuring that outcome at the moment?
Thank you for the opportunity, and I want to say a very good evening to your listening and viewing audience. education is an interesting enterprise. An interesting enterprise in the sense that if you are to do it well, you have to look at the essential elements that can contribute to the ultimate outcome that you need. Increase in productivity through improved skills, development, critical thinking, creativity, effective communication, good collaboration skills demonstrated by the students. So essentially, when you talk about education reform, you have to look at access, you have to look at quality, and you have to look at the relevance of the education system. All the initiatives that we have embarked upon, four can be categorized into these three. For example, free senior high school, a great access opportunity, as you have rightly alluded to. But you also have to ensure that you transform your education system by improving quality. So you can also look at other government initiatives that have been embarked upon in terms of education transformation, where we have also, for example, increased the number of years of teacher preparation from 2 + 1 year practicum to now 4 years, so that teachers can master the content. You're talking about content at the subjects that they're going to teach. If it's mathematics, a teacher will adequately understand the mathematical concepts, and beyond that, be able to know his English and social studies and everything. And thereafter, you also focus on the pedagogy. The pedagogy essentially is how to teach, how to deliver the content to the student in such a way that the student will understand. And then in the 21st century, how do you transmit what is called the 4 C's that I initially mentioned, which is effective communication by the student, and then effective collaborative skills so that they can function in the world of work, and then critical thinking and creativity. So for example, an exam that will ask students to label parts of a fish is not the exams that we need to be focusing on in the 21st century. When exams is focusing on why, how, when, that's the lowest level of teaching and learning that you want, an assessment that you want students to master. So we are shifting in terms of the new curriculum that has been introduced by the Ghana Education Service to a place where the teacher is not a sage on stage, not the wisest person in the room, not the teacher telling the student everything that they need to write down, memorize it, give it back to the teacher. That is not 21st century education. So if you look at the curriculum that GS has introduced now, we are shifting to a curriculum where the highest level of learning is creation. So instead of asking students causes of pollution, how does pollution come about, you are now going to ask them, how do you create a city without pollution? That is where they use the 4 C's and bring about critical thinking and creativity. And that is the kind of education we need in this country. So that is how you improve the quality. The results on the external exams is just one facet of it. The critical thinking skill the students acquire in the classroom cannot even be compared to whatever results that we get. But in the end, of course, we want to make sure they've mastered what they've been taught, and therefore they are able to pass the exam. So you look at all that outcome. But the education also have to be relevant to the needs of the country. So if you look at TBET and the transformation that we are doing, this is to help us really get to the point, and also where we can say that we've done access, we've done quality, and we've done relevance. And once you combine the three, then you are talking about education system that is fit for purpose, an education service system that can really transform the socioeconomic fortunes of your country. So basically, it's about to what end? Why education? Why education reform? And I think if you are making a case for free senior high school, it's not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. And therefore, your question is apt. Not only should you do access, also you have to be mindful of quality.
So my question was about how we are assessing improvement in the quality of teaching and learning. You've talked about the measures, the extension of the training time of teachers and so forth. But these are all things that will yield results in time. At the moment, are we able to look at the outcomes of basic and senior high school education to see whether or not we have improved quality?
That's why education is a very unique enterprise. When you talk about high school, for example, in Ghana, you're going to look at the WASI, right? And that is the most important benchmark. I'll tell you, the critical benchmark that you're going to see down the line is when you see education's impact on productivity, education impact on health outcomes, for example. So yes, short term, you're going to see the WASI and people are going to gravitate towards how is the WASI improved. But if you're looking at the real value of education to socioeconomic, it goes beyond the WASI to a point where your health indicators are getting better. You're looking at young women who now know biology and they're able to take good care of their children, they're able to take good care of themselves during the time when they're expectant. So there are many things that education brings to the fore. So when I talk about the 4 C's, you are not going to see the 4 C's on WASI, but it's a very important set of skills that in the 21st century students and people need to have in order to improve productivity in the workplace and improve the country generally. So yes, you're going to see short, medium-term WASI, but what you're going to see 10, 15 years from now with the change in the way teachers are teaching goes beyond the outcome that we're even expecting on the WASI. And that the WASI part of it will be something that we'll see. And that is why if you look at the learning outcomes and you focus on just the external exams, you are missing the boat. Because at the time the WASI results come in, starting from the basic level, by the time you get your WASI result, those students are gone. That is why beginning next academic year, we're going to do national assessment. Every other year, students are being tested from primary 1 all the way to senior high school. So that if the child doesn't do well in the first assessment in primary 2, you do intervention for the student in primary 3, you assess again in primary 4. So you are doing a longitudinal kind of study to see, can they read, can they write, and if they can't, what do I do? That's the kind of assessment that is going to inure to the benefit of the nation in a tremendous way beyond outcomes that we're going to see on PEC.
Dr. Chuchum, it's interesting that you talk about this sort of yearly assessments before the final external exam. I'm interested though. I mean, we've already spent, something like $1.5 billion every year on free SHS. Has the ministry not been putting in any kind of assessment mechanism year on year to see whether our investment is yielding improved results? Have we not been doing continued assessment of the students?
Continued assessment, what they do in the classroom, that is fine.
But do we know what those are yielding? Have we seen the results of that?
Of course. They have the continued assessment. We purchase software for them. You can go on the platform here and be able to know how the students are performing based on teacher scores, right?
So how are they performing?
To them by the teachers. Of course. Bottom line is that every school has they submit the results to WAEC. The continuing assessment is submitted to. I haven't taken a look at that because you see, in Ghana, continuing assessment does not stand on its own, on itself. They lump it together with the WASI scores, and then the results come out. In other jurisdictions, and this has been done for years, those countries where education has done very well, you don't wait till final assessment. Yes, the teacher-driven assessment is fine, but the state itself get external exams done in such a way that they know whether teachers are teaching or they are not teaching. And that is what is coming. Now, that this is the first time it's going to happen in Ghana that primary 2 students, every one of them will do an assessment. They used to have some random thing that they do for the NEA sample. A few students that assessment and we're able to project. But this time around, every student will take. So when you are talking about students who can read, you can see that Kojo cannot read, and Kojo's mother gets or father gets a report from the school after they do the assessment that Kojo cannot read, and therefore in primary 3, we are going to do an intervention for Kojo. In primary 4, Kojo is going to be assessed again to see can he read. And primary 6, we're going to do that again. So if you're a parent, you are getting usable data that you can then partner with the schools to make sure you don't have a situation where we say somebody graduates from high school and can't write.
Right.
But so if you don't do that, you're going to have.
So this is all to come. This is what you told us is going to be implemented. All right, I want us to look at what else is to come. I've been looking through the manifesto, and of course, the big headline for tertiary education is and I'm going to quote. It says, "Make sure no student who has obtained admission to a tertiary institution is denied access because they are unable to pay fees." And of course, you're going to do this by allowing them to obtain a student loan without the requirement of a guarantor. Professor Educhum, so what we are going to do once again is we're going to increase access to tertiary education, because now every student who gets admission is going to be able to go thanks to this loan scheme. So we are increasing access. But again, like we did with free SHS, we haven't yet seen the increase in infrastructure that will be necessary for us to avoid things like double track and gold track and silver track and so forth. Prof, are we not walking into the same glass door that we did with free SHS?
No, not really. And you see, when we talk about access, I always want us to begin with, if you look at Simon Sinek's book, it starts with why, right? When you don't get the why, you may say, I don't like this and I don't like that. Double track is bad. Because we have not been able to explain the why to you, for you to see the sense of urgency. When we establish the sense of urgency, then you can understand, oh, I understand why this is being done and why this intervention is being done. So to get to your question, you see, one of the most predictors of education's contribution to socioeconomic development, one most important factor is what is called the gross tertiary enrollment ratio. That is established that if a nation's gross tertiary enrollment ratio goes up, socioeconomic transformation is carried along and growth happens. So for example, if you look at the gross tertiary enrollment ratio of Ghana, if you look at the young men between the ages of 18 to 23, we are 17%. Out of every 100, 17 is in some kind of tertiary, whether it's nursing training, teacher training, or university. Okay? Now, countries that have developed, you have to hit 40 going to 50. That is when you see sustainable development. So if you look at the case of Ghana and South Korea, we are 17%. South Korea is 94%, as the Vice President has said in his manifesto presentation. Now, in 1960, we were richer than them, per capita income. They focused on education. They were able to move the vast majority of their people to go up. And not only do they look at the access, they look at the relevance of the education. So when they were moving into heavy manufacturing, more universities were given the resources to do heavy manufacturing. South Korea is now a developed nation, right? So if we don't move the gross tertiary enrollment ratio, but how do you move the gross tertiary enrollment ratio when your secondary enrollment ratio is so low? So you bring free senior high school to lift that middle, to bridge that gap, move your people up, then move the tertiary enrollment ratios up, improve quality of teaching and learning at the tertiary level, make the courses relevant to the needs of the country, and the socioeconomic transformation is coming. So I don't want to talk about education as an end in itself. We have to look at the linkages between education and socioeconomic transformation. That is when we look at our tertiary institutions like our UNIMA. I just spoke with the Professor Afu Bruni, the Vice Chancellor. They have made ample preparations to receive more students into their institutions. Universities around the country have done a fantastic job of increasing potential enrollment in the coming years. Our government has been supporting, and the universities themselves have mobilized resources, and they've done a fantastic job. And then you see, when you solve the loan issue, private universities then improve their capacity automatically. There are private universities, so many of them, and the number of students that are there are limited because students can afford. If you do a very good student loan trust fund, I'll tell you, capacity of private universities will double because now they have students who can afford to pay. As you rightly said, we have students who get an enrollment and they can go. The sad part of it is even the fact that you have to go to the university in order to apply for the student loans. We've had it backward. In other jurisdictions, you apply for the student loan as you apply for admission. By the time your admission comes, the loan is ready, and you pay and you go. So many children are staying at home because you have a situation where they don't have a guarantor. Guarantee system, 1988, I was third year of the university. That is when the SNAID loan started. I struggled to get a guarantor. Finally, I got a guarantor. And the sad thing these days is that most people don't want to mortgage their pension. So you go to me and say, you want me to use my pension? What about if I don't see you anymore? So the very poor who need the help the most are the ones who can afford a find guarantee because their parents don't work and they don't have pensions.
Right. Now, Doc, you mentioned that in order to increase our tertiary enrollment ratio, we first had to increase our secondary enrollment ratio. So does that mean that the reason why our tertiary enrollment wasn't high was because there weren't enough people coming through the secondary system?
Let me tell you, yes. And the 17% is not surprising because you see, it was about 54% who could move on from junior high to secondary. The rest couldn't go, right? So once you have that scenario, then you have 30% who passed the WASI. So when you have about 54, 1/3 of it is about 17% that we were getting. So to begin with, a number of people couldn't go. Then 30% passed the WASI. That gives you the 17% mathematically what we were getting. Now, then you go to the university system.
So that means everybody who was passing WASI was able to go to university.
Not necessarily, because you see, some people repeated it. So first time pass may be 17, but when they do reset, the numbers go up.
Right. So I'm trying to figure out
the number after even the reset, the number which was 17% still speaks to the fact that some students will have dropped out, even from junior high before the high school.
Right.
So because when you talk about the gross tertiary, you are looking at the 8 cohort that are within 18 to 23, and how many of them are able to move up.
But in your analysis, I'm trying to find the students who were unable to pay. From the maths you've done, it looks like everybody, who graduates SHS ends up in university, making up the 17%. So where are those who are unable to pay?
No, the thing is, the 17% is the first time, right? So generally, you have that ballpark figure. But people do resets. So when they do reset, you're going to get more than 17% within the age bracket who can go.
How much more?
So maybe 3% more, whatever it is. But the bottom line is those of us who are MPs get these students, parents who come to us and they are crying, my child has passed, he's gotten admission and he can't go. And you try as much as you can. But it's a bad situation. And the sad thing is those who go and then they need guarantors. It becomes a huge burden on the family because they can't find a guarantor. So there's multi-tiered, multi-layered kind of challenges. And when you remove the guarantor, then at least you have freed up a whole bunch of people to be able to access loans and take care of.
So this initiative of removing the guarantor, what is the target increase that the Ghana Ministry of Education is hoping for? Once you institute this no guarantor loan system, you're hoping to increase the tertiary admission ratio from 17% to what?
Now, if you look at the projections that we've made in the education strategic plan, within a period of 5 years, we are looking at can we hit 30% gross tertiary enrollment ratio. But all these barriers were there. So
but how will you do that if there's only 3% that's unable to make it in because of every year?
These are not hard facts, as I was telling you. They are not hard facts.
But you're aiming for 30% in 5 years. How have you come by that number?
No, 30% is a hard fact. It's WASI. I've also told you that it's sitting for WASI one time. People do reset, so the numbers go up. So you have more than 30% in the pool go to the universities. So these are analysis.
So you want
some of them are based on conjectures. Some are based on real facts that you have. Yes.
Okay, so your target at the ministry is to increase tertiary admissions from 17% to 30% over 5 years.
Yeah, as spelled out in the strategic plan, yes.
Right, and this 30% is basically going to be the total number of students who graduate from, who pass WASSCE.
Including research, you're going
to
get more people in the pool.
Okay, so 30% in 5 years. That will mean that you would have to be able to add about 6% every year.
I mean, you see, with a free senior high school, if you really look at the fact that we have, within this 3 years, we have 100,000 more going through senior high school, it's not difficult to get to that number. You just have to remove the barriers.
Well, we're yet to see the quality. We're yet to see the pass rate following free SHS. The first cohort of free SHS is about to go through.
If you maintain even the same pass rate, the numbers are higher. So
do we know whether we're going to increase the pass rate?
And the numbers are higher.
Do we know whether we're going to increase the or maintain or decrease the pass rate?
I don't have a crystal ball, so I won't come and sit in front of you and tell you that maybe increase. I don't have a crystal ball. So we don't have to wait for too long. We see the numbers. But the bottom line is that you have more people. So when you put more people in the pool, the numbers, absolute numbers will go up, and therefore your gross session enrollment ratio will have to go up because you've really increased the number of students in the pool. And that gives you a better opportunity in terms of increasing your gross session enrollment ratio.
Right. I haven't really had the chance to talk to you about funding, how you're going to fund this particular initiative. I mean, it's definitely going to be expensive. If you're looking at almost doubling the admission rates over 5 years, that's going to cost a lot of money in terms of loans and so forth. I know you're looking to use the Ghana card identification system as some sort of tracking mechanism. But we still haven't quite succeeded at locating people's addresses with the Ghana Post GPS system. It's still growing. It's still not at full capacity. So what's the plan? What's the contingency to ensure that we can identify people?
One of the reasons why other countries are able to do some of the things we can do is basically identification issue. Now we have GPS, the digital address link up with the national ID. You're able to at least find out where the person is. So it's a huge boost. The digitalization agenda pursued by the government, spearheaded by the vice president, is going to give us a huge boost in some of these things, right? And then the interesting thing is that your national ID is your TIN, right, number. So the moment you start work, it registers in SNES that you work here. It's registered in the Student Loan Trust Fund that you work at this place. So you cut down the anonymity that has been plaguing the system for too long, where a student works or a graduate works at a location and you don't even know. Now you have cut that down. So you hit Social Security system because your deduction is being made. The tax ID system kicks in with GRA, link with your national ID, and Student Loan Trust Fund knows where you are, instructs your employers to deduct it on their behalf. So this is something that has never happened before. And that is why this digitization agenda is so critical to the fortunes of this country. There are certain things you can do now that you couldn't do 2 years ago, or even last year. Yeah. So if you look at removal of the guarantor, without the national ID, you could not have even thought about that. Right. So now you go to the university, you register, they're going to collect all that data. The moment you finish, you go to national service, your data is in there. After national service, you get a job, it's registered with Student Loan Trust Fund. So that seamless tracking of students and their identities then helps you. You're going to get a passport, it registers in there. So everywhere you turn, something tells the Student Loan Trust Fund that this is where you are, and it will therefore boost their ability to really collect the loans that they disperse.
Right. Let me wrap up with this, Dr. Educhum. You talked about how your expectation is for the tertiary institutions, the private ones, to respond to this loan scheme by improving and enhancing their facilities. How much consultation have you done with private universities in arriving at this particular plan?
No, I was not part of the Manifesto committee. I'm a deputy minister.
So
what I know is that when you create incentives and the incentives are right, it's just a question of people taking advantage of it. If I'm a private university president, right, and students have access to me, it makes sense that if they don't have access in the public sector, they will be coming to me. And the innovative aspect of Ghanaian tertiary education space in terms of private sector is the fact that they are affiliated to public universities. So you go to a private university, you get a diploma from Legon, you go abroad, it's Legon's diploma in your hands up to a point where the university would then obtain a charter. So that's a very innovative system that will encourage more people to look at the private universities in case the capacity in some of the public universities are limited and they won't get opportunities.
Right. So these are assumptions. It's not that you've actually spoken to the private universities to find out whether they might even have any
informal discussions.
Right. Okay.
I think people are just excited about the fact that if the students come to me, they will get a loan. And if they can get a loan, then of course, potentially, I can increase my enrollment.
Right. You don't know whether there might be any bottlenecks that will prevent them.
I mean, some of these things, you remove the bottlenecks, you do your analysis, then the practical issues will come up.
Right.
So I can't sit here and say that based on this, all private universities will increase enrollment because in some places the fees are much higher than the loans that the student will get. So I can't sit here and say that because of this, all universities are going to boost enrollment at the private. It depends.
Right. Dr. Duchum, I want to thank you so much for that. You've certainly helped us get into these policies and understand them better. We appreciate that. I want to wrap up now with Mr. Joseph Homaji, who is the interim chair of the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. Now, Mr. Homaji, one thing we've realized is that very often when political parties write manifestos, they make promises to do all kinds of things in education, but it's hard to identify sometimes what problems they are trying to solve. So we've just heard about one of the big flagship initiatives that the NPP is promising if they are to win in December 2020, and it's to remove guarantors from the loan scheme. Now, is GNECC satisfied that this will go to solve a specific and existing problem in our tertiary education sector?
Yeah, Kojo, thank you very much for this question. But before, if your permission, before I come to that, can I address the quality issue you raised?
Certainly,
with,
certainly.
the doctor?
Yes, please.
Good, thank you very much. You know, it is true that the free HS has increased access and has addressed the issue of equity. However, the quality, I think there's a challenge there, which the government has to look at it seriously. Is, for example, the numbers in the classrooms are huge to the extent that teachers giving assignment, are they able to mark the assignments critically? Again, if the children are so many in the classroom, what about the teacher? Does it affect teaching and learning in the classroom? So these are all quality issues. Then number two, the attention is so much on the free HS to the extent that the basic level, I don't think it's getting the equal attention, even though I'm aware there are some other measures as far as the basic level is concerned. But there are issues over there. For example, you go there, even children in the lower primary cannot even read anything, or they cannot read as expected. These are all quality issues. Then the next thing is supervision. There must be very effective supervision in the schools. When you read school improvement literature, it will tell you that school improvement happens at the school level. What about the heads? Right. Are they supervising? What about the supervisors in the district? Are they doing the supervising work? Are they demanding accountability from the teachers, the head teachers, the directors to ensure effective teaching and learning? These are all quality issues. And what about the resources in the classroom, in the JSS, the basic level, the 3HS level? So these are issues that affect quality.
Right.
So our position is that the government should do more in terms of resources, in terms of training. I know the government is doing something in that area, but I think more attention should be given to basic level, which is the fundamental, our foundation level.
Okay. Mr. Joseph Homaji, I apologize for cutting in. I'm told that our time is up, but you certainly have made your point there, that there are several quality issues that do need to be addressed by the government, and you've enumerated a number of them. I want to thank you very much for your time with us. We appreciate you very much. Mr. Joseph Homaji is the chairman of GNECC.